School is about to start, and this is a little bit of a tough topic, but it's something that is very important to discuss, and that's mass casualty crimes, and in some cases, school shootings. Now, Victims First is a resource for victims. They educate communities in the best practices and how they can organize to make sure that in a case of a mass shooting or a situation like that, they are the best prepared. So of course we have Anita joining us today, and we're going to get to her in just a moment, but it's important to recognize that we're not trying to scare you. We're just trying to make sure that everyone has the best resources possible so that if something like this were to happen, you have a plan in place and you also know who to reach out to. Now, Victims First is a really interesting organization because it's not just made up of people that, have planning experience, which they do, but it's also made up of people who have experienced this firsthand. So welcome to the show, Anita. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I know this is a tough topic, so I appreciate your candor and I appreciate you sharing this with us because you have a very personal story connected to this. So can you tell us how Victims First got started?
Yeah, it started after 10 years ago, my cousin was murdered in a mass shooting in the Aurora Theater in Colorado during the midnight screening of A Dark Knight Rises. And afterwards, there weren't a lot of victim resources. There wasn't a lot of victim care. We were all scrambling to help to keep each other on our feet. And then in 2017, it happened again to my family. And Stacy survived while running out of the Vegas concert under a hail of bullets. So it's a very personal mission for me.
I'm very sorry that this is what you've experienced. I know that it should not be the norm for most Americans, and unfortunately you had to experience it twice, which gives you a unique perspective into the needs of victims. And it's not just you, right? So your team has also personally experienced this kind of situation.
Yeah, we are comprised of over 20 years of victims of mass shootings, and from all families of the deceased, catastrophically injured, wounded meaning shot, injured, and those who survived a mass shooting. And like you said so rightly, it does offer a unique perspective when we go in to help communities organize in the best interests of the victims. And we know what victims will need and how to keep them on their feet financially is what we do.
So obviously when somebody goes through something like this, it's incredibly traumatic, but how can we prevent, and I'm sure that nobody does this on purpose, but how can we prevent re-traumatizing or re-victimizing the people that have gone through things like this?
Yeah, it's a great question, honestly, because there are so many well-meaning people with pure intention who don't want to harm the victims, and sometimes don't even know the right language to use or scared, And I can tell you that healing is a term that it doesn't really, for families of the deceased, there's no healing. It's like you learn how to cope with this heavy heart and this heavy coat that you just carry around of grief all the time. So, talking about, anniversaries, it's really nothing to celebrate. So we say, the year remembrance or the year mark. And there's so much language for families of the deceased saying that your child, I'm sorry you lost a child. Well, it's not like a set of car keys. You did not lose your child. Your child was taken from you. Your child was stolen. Your child was murdered. And it's okay to use those words. Also, when people give, you've worked hard for your money. And when people give and want to give, make sure that when you give, it's going directly to victims. There's language used like support the victims. That doesn't mean it's going directly to victims. So just make sure that when you give that it's where you want it to go.
So how can communities, how can families prepare so that if a situation arises, they have a plan, they have some idea of what to do?
Yeah, so many communities, they don't think it's going to happen to them until it does, and then they're completely unprepared. So we're trying to make sure that communities are prepared. We're sharing what we know. On our website, victimsfirst.org, there is best practices for mass casualty crime. It is a living document. It is updated after each mass casualty of what was learned to help the next set of families going forward. So we are we really encourage communities to go on the website, print that out, look at that, learn it, and be prepared.
Now, we have been blessed in our direct community to not have had an incident like this, at least that I'm aware of. However, other people in the community may have experienced something, some sort of trauma, or it may be something that's not necessarily a mass casualty event, but some other situation. What would you tell victims out there who maybe just need that support?
You know, if you've gone through such trauma, it's what you're experiencing is normal to a very abnormal situation. And I would tell people, and it's just what I told my own cousin when we were searching so frantically for Michaela on July 20th, trying to find her, only to find that she was in the theater dead. But one of the things that happens is your faith is just completely tested. So I would say what I said to him, and I don't even know where it came from, but it was, don't let evil destroy your faith in God, because that's what it wants to do.
Thank you so much, Anita. And again, I am so sorry for everything that you've been through, but I appreciate that it inspired this movement and that now you're helping a lot of other people to heal through their tragedies as well. So kind of keeping on the topic of supporting the community, coming up next, we're going to be talking to Make-A-Wish because it is Make-A-Wish Wednesday. So stay with us.